The Arizmendi family's monthly dinners were less about food and more about showing off money. That night, at the huge estate on the outskirts of the valley, promised to be especially unbearable. I took my usual seat near the fireplace, watching in silence as my cousins competed to see who could brag the loudest. "I just bought a ranch in San Miguel," sang Roy, swirling his glass of wine, "right next to the guy who controls half the tech corridor." "Please," scoffed Kayla, opening her designer handbag with a theatrical gesture. "We just closed on a vineyard and a house with private beach access. You cannot put a price on that view." I hid my smile behind my glass of iced tea. "Teresa," the voice of my Aunt Phyllis cut through the air from the other side of the table. "You have been too quiet." Roy leaned in with fake compassion dripping from every word. "We were wondering about your living situation." There was the punch, ready and waiting. "My situation?" I replied, setting my glass on the table. "That cramped duplex in the city," he said. "You are still renting, right?" "The one on Aliso Street," added Kayla, feigning surprise. "I did not know people our age still rented." I almost laughed. The building on Aliso Street had been the first commercial acquisition of my company, West Pine Group. To them, I was a tenant barely surviving. In reality, I was the owner. "I like the space," I said calmly. "You are 35, sweetheart," Phyllis added with a condescending smile. "It is time to grow up. Buy something real." By real, she meant a portfolio of billions in multifamily buildings, commercial towers, and yes, Plaza Arizmendi, the very building where they had been meeting every month for the last 6 months. I had bought it quietly through a private capital vehicle they would never trace back to me. "I have managed my money very well," I replied. Roy smiled with disdain. "You cannot even afford a mortgage." I leaned back and let them talk, because soon their lease renewal would arrive on their desks, and guess whose name would be on the letterhead? My dad, Ralph, finally looked up from his glass. Okay, Roy. Not everyone is blessed with your instincts," he said without conviction. "Teresa chose her path." My Aunt Phyllis sighed as if I had disappointed her by not marrying a fund manager or becoming a social media star. They believed I spent my days showing cheap apartments to broke students, surviving on commissions. What they did not know was that Teresa Arizmendi, the family outcast, was also West Pine Group, the anonymous firm that had silently spent the last decade buying commercial and residential real estate all over the metropolitan area. "Speaking of real estate," Kayla intervened with a glint in her eyes, "did you hear about Aliso Street? A firm bought the whole block. They are going to tear everything down," she added with fake pity. "I suppose your little apartment is finally going away." I kept my expression neutral. I had been the buyer, and I had no intention of demolishing anything. The building on Aliso Street was a hidden gem with brick facades, antique details, and rent protections for families who had lived there for decades. I was deep into a respectful renovation of its historic value. "Really?" I asked. I hadn't heard. "Well, of course not," Roy mocked. "Deals of that size are out of your league." "If they kick you out," said Phyllis cheerfully, "you can always come back to the guest house. We will help you find something more respectable. Maybe even marry someone respectable." "I am fine," I said dryly, "and so is my landlord." Kayla let out a tight laugh. "You cannot live a small life forever, dear. The Arizmendi name used to mean something in this country." It still meant something, but not the way they thought. In real estate circles, West Pine Group was synonymous with ethical growth and putting tenants first, the opposite of my cousin's flashy developments that destroyed communities just to show off. "Actually," said my dad, Ralph, setting down his glass, "this meeting is also a bit of business. The board of directors is worried about the new owner of Plaza Arizmendi." I tilted my head. "West Pine Group bought a majority stake 6 months ago," he said. "Nobody knows who they are, possibly a foreign investor." Roy nodded. "Sure, those tycoons love legacy properties." If only they knew that their feared mysterious investor was sitting right there in a second-hand sweater and scuffed boots. And now, Ralph continued, they are asking hard questions, especially about our creative accounting practices, like when Roy took money from the maintenance fund to finance his ranch, or when Kayla registered her luxury bags as client entertainment expenses. I am sure it is nothing serious, said Phyllis, her pearls trembling. The Arizmendi name still carries weight. That is the problem, interrupted Ralph. These people from West Pine Group do not seem impressed by last names. They ordered a full audit. I saw panic hide behind designer smiles. An audit would uncover more than doubtful expenses. It would break their entire game. Maybe Teresa can help, said Kayla suddenly with a sugary tone. She works in real estate, right? Maybe she knows someone in management. Everyone turned to look at me at once. Suddenly, I was not an embarrassment. I could be useful. I work more with small residential clients, I said softly. Nothing the size of Plaza Arizmendi. For the love of God, Roy exploded. You are useless even to your own family. My mom shot him a warning look, but her silence said enough. Even my dad, Ralph, went back to his phone, uninterested in defending me. He had no idea how useful I was about to be, just not in the way they expected. The next morning, West Pine Group would issue a public statement. With immediate effect, Plaza Arizmendi would enter a major operational reform. No more hidden budgets, no more crony contracts, no more charging the building as if it were a family credit card. I looked around the penthouse at art bought with maintenance money, sofas billed at triple the cost, and installations done by the company of Kayla's husband, Jordan, with inflated invoices. Anyway, I said, standing up and brushing off my jeans, some of us have early mornings. Kayla smiled maliciously. Off to show more studios with rent control? I slung my worn leather bag over my shoulder. Inside, I carried things worth more than anything in that room. Legal briefs, renovation proposals, and reports ready for the board of directors. No, Teresa, Phyllis called out sweetly. Next time, dress more like an Arizmendi. Appearances matter. I smiled. Do not worry, I said. Tomorrow I am going to look exactly like the Arizmendis expect. You just haven't realized that I am already the one running everything. If you have been supporting Teresa in silence, do not miss what happens when the boardroom doors open. Subscribe to the channel to be the first to see how the family reacts when they discover that the nobody they despised now holds the keys to everything. The next morning, I was in my real office, a full floor in a penthouse overlooking the city, ready for the moment I had planned for more than a year. My assistant, Abigail, walked in quickly and placed a cappuccino next to my laptop. The board of directors of Plaza Arizmendi is already gathered, she said. Your family arrived early, trying to win over the independent directors. I smiled, imagining Roy and Kayla moving desperately around the room. The audit packages are already printed and distributed. The forensic team found even more than expected, Abigail added, pausing. Are you sure you want to do this? Once they know, there is no going back. They have to learn, I said quietly, that legacy is not a license to abuse power. I turned toward the glass and saw my reflection. Gone were the jeans and sweater. That day, I wore a deep navy blue suit with firm lines and quiet strength, the kind of image my Aunt Phyllis dreamed I would wear to meet a wealthy match. Instead, I would use it to knock down their house of cards. The ownership announcement goes public in 20 minutes, Abigail added. As soon as it is out, you are exposed. Then let's begin, I said, grabbing my briefcase. The boardroom of Plaza Arizmendi went silent when I entered. My family was huddled at the back, nervous, underdressed for the occasion, and visibly shaken. Who are you? Barked Roy. This is a private meeting. Calmly, I placed my briefcase at the head of the table. I am Teresa Arizmendi, I said, founder and sole owner of West Pine Group, the company that owns this building and several others that your family illegally leveraged. Phyllis turned white. Kayla's lips parted, but no sound came out. My dad's hands tightened around his pen. Teresa, Ralph whispered, I nodded. Good morning. I opened the briefcase and began sliding audit reports across the table. We reviewed your finances. This is crazy, Roy stammered. You are... What? I asked. The black sheep? The renter? The woman in secondhand clothes? Kayla blinked. But you show apartments. I work, I replied simply, and I built something real with integrity, not an illusion. The board watched in astonishment as the proud family fell apart page by page. These folders, I said, contain detailed documentation of every misused fund, every inflated invoice, and every falsified receipt. Reports of financial irregularities in the accounts of Plaza Arizmendi. I handed out the last set of documents. Roy, do you want to explain the $40 million in roof repairs that financed your ranch? He turned red so fast I thought he would faint. Or you, Kayla, I continued, turning to the next page. Maybe you want to walk us through the invoices from your husband Jordan's company, charging 3 times the market rate for basic plumbing. You are going to expose your own family's dirty laundry like this? Gasped Phyllis. No, I said firmly. You brought it out. I am just making sure it gets cleaned. My dad, Ralph, finally spoke in a low, pleading voice. Teresa, sweetheart, can we explain? No, I said, raising a hand. I have watched this family treat our great-grandfather's legacy like a personal ATM. While you mocked my supposed humble life, I was building something better, based on values, not vanity. But why? Asked Kayla, stunned. Why pretend you were struggling? I didn't pretend anything, I replied. I lived modestly. I invested intelligently. You assumed that wealth had to make noise. The building on Aliso Street, said Roy, confused. You really live there. I own it, I corrected, and most of the block. And no, I am not going to demolish it because some of us care about people, not just returns. Suddenly, phones around the table vibrated. A director looked up, reading his screen. West Pine Group reveals the identity of its CEO. Teresa Arizmendi, a little-known member of the Arizmendi family, confirmed as the owner of a real estate portfolio worth billions. Another director grabbed her phone hurriedly. Recognized among the top ethical developers, historic preservation, tenant protections. This is going to destroy us, whispered Kayla, pale. No, I said firmly. This is going to save you from yourselves. Starting today, Plaza Arizmendi will operate with transparency. No more tricks, no more rigged contracts, no more using the building as a petty cash box. And if we don't comply? Roy tried to sound brave, but his voice trembled. I smiled. Then I hand these reports to the authorities. I am sure the tax office and the prosecutor would find them very interesting. The silence became heavy. What do you want? Asked Ralph finally. I want you to remember what the name Arizmendi meant before all this. I looked at them one by one. My great-grandfather built communities, not just profit margins. I stood up, gathering my papers. You have a choice. Work with me to restore that legacy, I said evenly, or find another place to live. They say there are very nice rentals by the lake. I turned to leave. Teresa, wait. Ralph's voice stopped me right at the door. I was wrong about you. Yes, I replied quietly. You were. What came next unfolded like a corporate drama. The media could not get enough of the story of the hidden heiress who built a real estate empire in silence and dismantled her family's illusions in a single board meeting. My Aunt Phyllis resigned from 3 local boards, too ashamed to show her face. The company owned by Kayla's husband, Jordan, collapsed a few weeks after the audit findings were published. Roy ended up facing real consequences. But not everything was bitter. Kayla enrolled in a real estate program at a public university and started volunteering at a transitional housing shelter downtown. Later, she told me that it gave her more purpose than all her gallery openings combined. And my dad, Ralph, asked to learn the business, not as a father regaining control, but as a student. This time, he wanted to understand what I had built. 6 months later, I was sitting in my apartment on Aliso Street. Yes, I stayed there. I was reviewing the new quarterly reports. Plaza Arizmendi was flourishing. Leases were stable, tenant satisfaction was up, and the small businesses on the ground floor were generating healthy profits. A knock caught my attention. I opened the door to find my mom. She was wearing jeans and no makeup. It took me a moment to process the casual look. "I received your invitation," she said, holding it up. "Christmas party in the courtyard." I nodded. "It is not exactly your scene." "No," she admitted, looking around my modest space. "But I am learning that maybe the scene isn't everything." She picked up a photo of me at 23, smiling at my real estate license ceremony. "I never asked you," she said. "Why this path?" "Because I wanted to build something real," I replied, "not just buy it and show it off." "And now," she murmured, "you control more than all of us." I nodded. "Yes, but control is not the goal. The goal is purpose." She looked at me seriously. "Will you teach me?" "Come tonight," I said. "Meet the families who have lived here for decades. Listen, that is where the legacy begins." Later, I stood by the window watching the lights twinkle over the city. This city that I had silently made mine. Plaza Arizmendi shone in the distance. It was no longer a monument to greed, but a symbol of restoration. Below me, the building on Aliso Street buzzed with quiet life. Maintained brick, original wooden beams, courtyards with carefully preserved gardens. My phone vibrated with new messages, offers for partnerships, invitations to conferences, purchase proposals. West Pine Group was in huge demand, but I kept a human schedule and a grounded routine. To me, success was not overshadowing my past. It was building something that mattered, something that would last. Sometimes the person they pity ends up being the one they have to learn from, and sometimes the best kind of triumph does not roar. It remains. A week later, at the Christmas party on Aliso Street, I stood by the garden fountain watching my family get used to a world they once despised. My mom sat next to Jean, a tenant here for 38 years, listening with genuine interest. Roy helped hang lights with Jesse, a World War II veteran and the longest-standing resident. Kayla laughed at a table where children were decorating cookies with powdered sugar. Little by little, they were learning. Real wealth is not in what you can show off. It is in what you preserve, what you share, and what you uplift. My dad, Ralph, approached me near the hot chocolate table. "You know," he said, "your great-grandfather believed that buildings should shelter hearts, not just wallets." I nodded. I found his old ledgers, handwritten notes about protecting tenants. We forgot. He looked at me, not as a daughter who strayed, but as someone who carried the torch he had dropped. "You could have destroyed us." "That was never the goal," I said, watching a little girl spin under the lights. "I wanted to build something that would outlast me. And sometimes, the greatest success is not in proving them wrong, but in offering them a better version of what is right. If you were ever underestimated, overlooked, or counted out in silence, maybe you see a little of yourself in me. I did not set out to prove anything to anyone. I just wanted to build something real, something that could not be taken away, because it was rooted in values, not vanity. If my story moved you, I would like to hear from you. Leave a comment. What would you have done in my place? What have you built in silence while others doubted you? Let's talk. Let's give credit to that quiet work, the long nights, the hard decisions. And if you are facing a moment like the one I lived, when the world expects nothing from you, do not scream louder. Build stronger. You do not need approval to start. You need purpose and consistency. The rest comes. Support this journey by subscribing to the channel. More stories are coming about resilience, redemption, and redefining success on your own terms. Because legacy is not what you inherit, it is what you create. And sometimes, the best revenge is not revenge. It is becoming exactly who they said you could not be. Subscribe, stay with me, and let's build something that lasts.